everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm super excited to share with all of you my first impressions of Terra Moons. So for a while now, I've heard really great things about indie brands, and I really love the Sydney Grace Timptalia collection. And so Terra Moons has been on my list of brands to try out. So recently I picked up these 4 gorgeous shades. And so in today's video, I'll be sharing with you all swatches and a demo of all of these shades and my first impressions of the brand. So if you're interested in learning more about Terra Moons, then just stick around. So looking at these shades, you can probably tell that I was interested in a pretty specific color story. So if you guys watched part 1 of my Pat McGrath Utopium Dream collection, you know that based on all of the teasers that Pat McGrath was doing for that palette, I got really excited about the prospect of having really colorful pastel and multi-chrome shades. And so once it turned out that that palette was not really going to fit the bill in terms of what I was looking for there, I thought indie brands would be a great way to go. So as you can see, most of Terra Moon's shadows come just in a single shadow form in a little cardboard sachet. And so when I picked these up, I figured I also needed a palette to store them in. So I actually picked up this huge palette from Adept Cosmetics. It's in this really chic faux green reptilian print with gold embossments. And the paneling is gold as well. So the way this palette works is that it opens up like this, and it has 2 sides to it. So each half opens up to a palette like this, plenty of room to store any metallic pans. And then the other side actually comes with a mirror. And you can see here I already have a couple of single eyeshadows, one from Aether Beauty and a couple from Sydney Grace. And I first heard about this palette from Michelle Wong, and so far I've been quite pleased with it. I think it looks really nice, and I feel like I'll have plenty of room to expand my indie shadow collection. So without further ado, let's get into these swatches. So first off, we have Lunar or Later, and this is described as a soft mint green matte. Next, we have Daydreamer, and this is a soft cornflower blue matte. Next, we have Moontide, and this is described as an indigo violet base that shifts light blue, lavender, and pink with hints of silver. And you can see here, this is a really fun multi-dimensional shade. And then finally, we have Orion's Belt. And this is a vivid bright blue base that shifts gold, teal, lavender, and green. And you can see here that this is a little bit more of a smooth metallic, but still has a lot of great dimensionality to it. And here's how the shadows look in the palette. Aren't they so cute? I wanted to pick some complementary colors, so even though these are single shadows, I can still use this kind of like a palette. So here are all of the swatches, and I am so excited for these shades. They are so pretty. And I think these 2 down here especially are Terra Moon's specialty. So these are called Cosmic Chameleons. And they describe this as a hybrid between a vivid metallic and an iridescent chameleon shade. So they also have chameleon shades that are more of a glitter topper kind of effect that you would layer over a more pigmented shadow to just give a really nice iridescent effect. For my first haul though, I wanted to try something that was really in your face and really special. So I am very excited to get these shadows on my lids. So to start off today's look, I'm gonna go into Daydreamer with my Wayne Goss number 16 brush and use this shade on the outer corners. Wow, okay, this is very flaky. I'm getting a lot of kick up. I probably should have done my base after eyeshadow, but it's okay, we can always clean this up later. Just so you know, these are pretty lightly pressed in the pan, so when I dabbed my brush in there, there's definitely a decent amount of kick up in the pan as well. This is applying really nicely though, in a very opaque manner, which I like, because what makes pastels quite difficult to formulate is that you need sort of a white base to them, and so of course, you can get a good pastel effect by first basically putting down a really pigmented white base and then going over that with shadow. But if you want a pastel shadow that can basically work on its own, that does create some additional challenges formulation-wise, because you almost need to include that creamy white base in the eyeshadow itself. So this is definitely blending out really nicely, and I love how this color is basically the same as my dress, so I think this will look really nice in an overall look. Today I just have concealer on the lids because I wanted to see how these shadows perform by themselves without primer, but I do think having some primer might help out. So now with my Sonia G Classic Crease in Lunar or Later, I'm going to dab this on the inner thirds. And again, a decent amount of fallout, so be a little bit careful when picking up these pigments because they are so soft. Definitely do your base afterward if you want to make sure that you don't have pigment all over your face. But similar to the other shade, this is blending out really easily, and I do like how pigmented this is. I do just wish though that it was a little bit more firmly pressed because I am getting a lot of fallout, not only on my face, but all over my new palette, which is a bit unfortunate. But this color is so pretty. Wow, look at that. I mean, obviously the Cosmic Chameleons are the star of today's show, but these pastels are also bringing it. So now with the finger, I'm gonna first go into Orion's belt and use this on the inner third to half of my lids. Wow, look at that shade. So pretty. I love just how much impact the shade has, and I mean, I thought about using mixing liquid today, but I think with a finger, this is already perfect. So much impact and opacity. And now with another finger, I'm taking Moontide and putting this on the outer half. Ooh, and these also are blending together so easily and beautifully. So now just taking my Wayne Goss number 16, I'm just going to refine the edges a little bit. Just add a little bit more of the pastel shades back to the crease area. Now for the lower lash line, I'm going to mimic what I did on my lids and start with Daydreamer on my soft definer from Sonia G and use this just on the outer thirds. And I think for such a small area like this, you need to be a little bit careful as you blend it out. Just carefully build up the pigment. And then cleaning off that brush, I'm going into Lunar or Later. And again, putting that on the inner third. I am getting, again, quite a lot of pigment going up in the air though. I can kind of see this little cloud of pastel pigment as I'm putting on the eyeshadow. So I will say if you have very sensitive eyes, maybe don't go for the pastel shades because I do feel like this is gonna inevitably get into your eye a little bit as you're putting this on. But this is really pretty. And like I said before, pastels are quite tricky to formulate. Now with my builder brush, I'm taking some of Orion's belt and using that on the inner third. Again, cleaning that off and going into Moontide, sweeping this on the outer half. It's really actually half and half, not 1/3, 2/3 for this look. So here we go. Here's the completed eyeshadow look. And I love how easy that was to create just a very, very fun, very multi-dimensional look. And for eyeliner today, I wanted to try out a new product. So I have here the Wander Beauty Skyliner Gel Eyeliner. And this is in the shade Napa Lights, which is a nice plummy aubergine shade. So I'm just gonna run this lightly on the lash line. Alrighty, so I managed to get some of that eyeliner on the outer third on my lids and then a little bit in the waterline, but it was honestly really hard to get any pigment off of the pen. So I don't know if it's just using this with these particular eyeshadow formulas, but I did want to note that. I think I'm actually gonna have to go in with some tattoo liner just to finish off this eyeliner look. So here we have the finished look. What do you guys think? So I went in with some black liner just to further define the eyes. And in case you're interested in what else I have on my face today, I have my Just Skin tint from Chantecaille in the shade Glow, my Pat McGrath concealer in the shade LM10. On my lips, I have my M Cosmetics lip liner in the shade Teddy and Nude Romance from Charlotte Tilbury. On the cheeks, I have Goa from Chantecaille, Pillow Talk Intense from Charlotte Tilbury. And because this look is so colorful, I just stuck with my Pat McGrath highlighter for some really subtle glow. So overall, I'm really loving this look. I feel like it's a great match to the colors that I have in my dress today. And it's just a really perfect, very easy to put together, colorful spring summer look. In terms of my initial impressions of Terra Moons, I would say that I'm really impressed with their formulations. The eyeshadows really perform impeccably on the lids. With the pastels, they look really beautiful. They're so easy to blend out and build up. They really look nice and opaque on the lids while still being soft and blendable. That said, there is a ton of fallout from these shades, so I really do wish they were able to make them a little bit harder pressed, just so when you dip the brush in, the shadow doesn't go everywhere. As you can see here, there's a decent amount of fallout in the pan from the pastel shades. And when I was putting them on my eyes, there was always a cloud of eyeshadow whenever my brush touched my lids. So that is the main downside, I would say, of their formula. I would say based on my experience with pastel shades from Natasha Denona and from Pat McGrath, it does seem like it's pretty difficult to formulate a really robust pastel. For example, for the pastels in Fleur Fantasia from Pat McGrath, on my lids and my skin tone at least, they just don't really show up very well because it's hard to have that opacity. So these are shades where you really need to layer them over a light base if you want to see the full impact. Just to show you guys what I mean, here I have the 3 pastel shades swatched from Fleur Fantasia, and you can see that the pastels over here are just much more pigmented and jump off the skin a lot more compared to these shades. And then going over to Natasha Denona, of course we have her Trio Chrome palette, which I really love, but the mattes here too don't necessarily always show up super well on my skin, and they do tend to muddy up a little bit when I layer them on top of each other. So here we have Androdite and Naga from Trio Chrome, and you can see that in comparison to the Pat McGrath, they definitely have a lot more base pigment to them, and so they do still stand out on my skin tone. But I will say they have a softer effect in comparison to the Terra Moons. In my current collection, the formula that's most similar to the Terra Moon pastel mattes is this Funtomime shade from the Circo Loco palette. So I swatched that here, and you can see that similar to the 2 Terra Moons shades, Funtomime definitely stands out and shows up true to color on my skin. The difference though is that Funtomime is definitely a little bit more chunky in comparison to the Terra Moons shades. So I find that when it first applies to the skin, it doesn't look the most smooth. Over time, this settles in and does provide a really nice finish on the skin, but I like how the shades from Terra Moons immediately buff into the skin and look really seamless. That said though, all of these other shades definitely are better from the standpoint of not having as much fallout. So I'd say that's the trade-off if you're comparing formulas. If you really don't like fallout or kick up, I would say that the Natasha Denona formulas are much better. If you don't mind that so much, but you really value a really seamless blend, then the Terra Moons ones are great. And if your skin tone is very light or you don't like to have a very pigmented pastel, then going with Pat McGrath's formula would be ideal. Turning now to these Cosmic Chameleons, I would say there's really no comparison in my collection right now. Obviously, I have some high impact shades from my other brands as well, but these are very, very unique. First off, I would say these colors are quite unique in my collection. They're just so vibrant. And I find that a lot of larger brands don't go so vibrant with their blues and their purples because those are maybe a bit more intimidating to put on the eyes. And also these formulations are just so interesting. The camera really doesn't do it justice, but there's just so much dimensionality to these shadows. Especially this Moontide shade is just so pretty. It really just looks like moonlight sparkling on the water. The colors really look like they're just dancing on the surface of the eyeshadow. Orion's belt doesn't necessarily have as much of that iridescent effect. I would say that swatched it looks a little bit more just like a vibrant metallic. But in person, as the light hits it, you can definitely see a little bit more of that multi-dimensional twinkle in comparison to your typical metallic shade. So overall, I am super excited to have these shades in my collection now, and I'm really excited to expand my exploration of indie brands. If you guys have a favorite shadow from Terra Moons or some favorite shadows from some other indie brands, definitely let me know, because I spent a lot of time on Terra Moons' website trying to decide which to pick up. I didn't want to buy that many to start out with, but of course everything looks so beautiful on their website. I can't wait to pick up some more shadows from them. So that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you guys think about these videos, trying out new to me indie brands. I hope this is helpful for any of you who might have been looking into Terra Moons and curious how these shadows perform and look on the eyes. So thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!